Well, the battle for control of Congress remains up for grabs at this hour. The red wave some Republicans were predicting did not materialize. 4 key races in the Senate are still too close to call: Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and Wisconsin. The Republicans are still on the verge of winning the majority in the House, but by a smaller margin than expected. The big win, though, for Republicans last night came out of the Sunshine State. Of course, I'm talking about Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis blew out his Democrat challenger, Charlie Crist, by a nearly 20% margin. That is enormous. DeSantis also won the Democrat stronghold of Miami-Dade County, first time that has happened in 2 decades. His win has helped turn Florida from a purple swing state to a solid red state, a shift that will have national implications. And DeSantis, well, he's seen as the GOP frontrunner for 2024. Check out this New York Post headline, front page, calling him the future. And last night, DeSantis said his policies are why.
We saw freedom in our very way of life and so many other jurisdictions in this country wither on the vine. Florida held the line. We chose facts over fear. We chose education over indoctrination. We chose law and order over rioting and disorder. Florida was a refuge of sanity when the world went mad. We stood as a citadel of freedom for people across this country and indeed across the world. Thanks to the overwhelming support of the people of Florida, we not only won election, we have rewritten the political map. Thank you for honoring us with a win for the ages. We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. Florida is where woke goes to die. People have come here because our policies work. Leadership matters. We refuse to use polls and put our finger in the wind. Leaders don't follow, they lead.
You know, this was the single best case I have heard made for the GOP in quite some time, Emily. It was so brilliant because where you had Biden saying, you know, democracy is dying, you had DeSantis very subtly taking that jab and saying people have delivered their verdict. Freedom is here to stay. It was positive. It was sunny. It was forward looking. It needs to be the future message for the party.
That's right. It was an astounding victory, 19-point landslide victory, right? In just 4 years, too, let's take a step back and look at him. He's 44 years old. In just his 4 years, he went to squeaking out a victory in the governor's race to a dominating performance last night. He's broken fundraising records. He's absolutely won the Hispanic vote in traditionally Democratic strongholds like Miami-Dade County. And he's positioned himself for a potential battle with the former president for the Republican primary nomination. It's really incredible. And, you know, these victories, as you said so eloquently, really has solidified that Florida is no longer a swing state. It is solid red, and it will have national implications. Florida Republicans dominated at every level of the ballot, and every level of the ballot, and these were historic gains. I think that needs to be underscored as well, with the Hispanic vote, with the inroads made in those previously Democratic counties. And his whole point, which he said, leadership matters, policies matters. Everyone noticed that they worked. As the Federalist writes, it was a culture war that he made his big tent. As Outkick coverage, Clay Travis wrote, it's now the base of the Republican Party, talking about Florida, an unprecedented level of dominance. As he wrote, being right on COVID has its rewards. The moral of the story is that if you are the GOP, wrote one journalist, you elevate DeSantis. And as he says, that leadership is what worked.
Harris, the numbers tell the story. We had some graphics made up. So Miami-Dade County, double-digit victory there. But look, going back to 2002, the last time a Republican won it, you can see those numbers, how for Republicans, they dip into the 30s. DeSantis bringing up those numbers to 55.3%. He won Palm Beach County, a blue refuge. He won, according to Fox News voter analysis, Latinos plus 13, women plus 15, suburban voters plus 17.
You know, when the Surfside Tower fell on that beach, to see him day in and day out leading the news conferences with Democrats and Republicans on that dais every day, you saw someone who really knows how to take action in a crisis. We have so many crises right now in this country that it's policy over any sort of personality, cult of personality. It is. And the people of Florida seem to have started that drumbeat now. That, yeah, they may like him, they may love him. We don't really know what they think about him because we don't live in Florida. You do. I mean, maybe they do.
They like him enough to vote him in that
but
landslide.
they like
That tells you all you need to know.
He does, which is something we say on the couch all the time. Don't listen to what somebody says, watch what they do. And especially pay attention when the words don't match the actions. His words match his actions. And you know what? He's made some mistakes along the way. When he went after Disney, that didn't pan out the way that he'd hoped for. But he had the message of the reason he had even tried was because he understood that people were tired of the woke conversation. He never faltered in the sense that his messaging was consistent. Democrats could take a page from him. Republicans could take a page from him on how to count votes in an election.
Right.
Arizona should pay attention. Kellyanne Conway and I were just talking about this. So there's a lot to learn in the state. But what does it say that a former president chose there to go at the end of the pandemic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Trump went to Florida. He's always had a place there, but he didn't have to stay there. He's got a lot of houses.
Yeah, look, I'm Florida born and raised, Florida resident, Florida voter. I go back often, was there last weekend. The enthusiasm, I was on a college campus last weekend. When you say DeSantis, you almost can't get through the rest of your speech because there are a lot of cheers. But I would counter that reaction that you get in Florida to the reaction of the media. Tammy, watch the meltdown and just smile.
I'm told we just got Miami-Dade. This is a big one in Florida. Let's take a look at, okay, we got yeah. So let's put this in some perspective. Miami-Dade County has 2.75 million people. In 2016, this was a Democratic county by 30 points. And look at this. In the mail-in and early vote, which again tends to be more Democratic friendly, Marco Rubio, the Republican, is outright leading in Miami-Dade County.
Miami-Dade has been trending Republican for a really long time. It's been slowly slipping toward the Republican Party. It is incredibly hard to turn people out, having done an election down there without Obama on the ballot. It's just that the turnout is anemic, whereas, you know, the conservative, you know, Cuban-American population in Miami-Dade, they know what they want.
This will be the first time since Reconstruction that Florida won't have any Democrats in statewide office, period. So, and DeSantis's victory,
the message,
Miami-Dade.
They know the significance of this, right? Florida's also so large, it really is like its own little miniature example of the United States, is that you can get all your subsets and all kinds of ages and all kinds of ethnic groups and everything else. And it's large, so you can't just walk it, right? And so I think the media has understood what this means, regardless of what was happening around the rest of the country. And they've, I think, perhaps maybe dismissed DeSantis. They've focused, obsessed with Donald Trump. But the thing that the two men have in common is that they're fearless. And even regardless, I think the Disney thing actually did have a good impact in that it was a statement that I'm not going to be afraid. Yes. This was wrong, right? It sets his brand, but it's more than a brand. It sets an attitude that he's willing to do what it takes to, and again, he speaks the anti-woke language, but he also, as we saw with the hurricane and with the condo collapse tragedy, he can govern. And this is the difference of how you can govern. Now, he's had no real internal anti-DeSantis thwarting or resistance in Florida, so maybe it's easy to govern when you've got all the support in the world. We will have to see about that. But I think that the media has recognized that this is the reflection of what's happened in the country. We see other great wins for Republicans. And look, the Democrat win is they didn't lose as badly as they expected. Now the worst part of this, and the media is going to have to deal with this as well, is that there's going to be no reflection amongst the Democrats. They're going to consider this a win. Point. And so nothing will change. Hochul's not going to do anything about crime. Biden is going to continue to set fire to to finances and to energy, and it will be a black swan internationally that will test this country. And I hope to God we can face it.
And Jason, you know, Joy Reid went on to say, oh, it was just the Cubans voting for DeSantis. No, it was Puerto Ricans too. It was Latinos broadly. We cannot leave this segment without revisiting the battlefield of love, which Charlie Chris brought up, because we were all haters who weren't supposed to turn out in Florida. So battlefield of love. Let's roll the tape.
He is on the battlefield of hate. I am on the battlefield of love.
I'm going to beat him because I'm running on love, and love always wins.
The battlefield of love. How'd that turn out?
Yeah, I was here at Fox watching all the bank of televisions, and when they went to Ron DeSantis to give his victory speech, only Fox was showing it, none of the other networks, because they know that he is probably, one of the front runners, if not the front runner, to become the next president of the United States of America. And if you watched, and he talked about his accomplishments, and then you look at the way he talked about the love of his wife, that touched a lot of people across the country. He did a spectacular job on that. And to Harris's point, it's because he actually has taken action and done things. And he didn't have to just say, oh, well, it's about democracy. And he's like, look what we did in Florida. So I think it portended really well. And Ron DeSantis loves his country as much as anybody. And you got to also credit Marco Rubio, because he had a spectacular night and did. He really had we got to watch that and learn from that, because the rest of the country, not so great for Republicans.
Yeah, the so-called haters showed up, and Charlie, I guess, has to go find a job now.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.